The WNBA just witnessed its biggest nightmare become reality, and the numbers are absolutely catastrophic. What started as whispers in locker rooms has exploded into full-blown panic as viewership numbers crashed harder than anyone predicted. The league that was supposedly entering its golden era is now watching everything crumble, and the timing couldn't be worse. Before we dive into these shocking revelations, hit that subscribe button if you want the real story about what's happening in women's basketball right now. The latest viewership data just dropped, and executives are literally scrambling to save face. Games that were pulling in over 1.2 million viewers last season are now struggling to break 400,000. That's not just a decline, that's a 70% freefall that has sponsors reconsidering their investments. The most devastating part is that this collapse happened practically overnight. One day, the WNBA was celebrating record-breaking attendance, and the next, they're staring at half-empty arenas wondering where everyone went. But that wasn't the whole story, because what happened behind closed doors was even more shocking. Multiple team owners held emergency meetings this past week discussing whether they can even sustain operations at these numbers. The Indiana Fever, who were supposed to be the league's flagship franchise, are now facing their own crisis. Their star player situation has become so toxic that insiders are leaking information about internal conflicts that would make your jaw drop. Players are reportedly divided into camps, with some believing the league focused too much on one person, while others argue that person was the only reason anyone was watching in the first place. The financial implications are staggering beyond belief. Sports economists are now projecting that the league could lose up to $1 billion in potential revenue over the next 2 seasons. That's not a typo, that's billion with a B. Merchandise sales have plummeted by 65% compared to last year's peaks. Jersey manufacturers are sitting on massive inventories they can't move. The most popular player jerseys that were selling out in minutes are now collecting dust in warehouses. Nike executives are reportedly furious about their investment, with some calling it the worst sports marketing decision of the decade. What happened next would shock everyone in the basketball community. The commissioner's office tried to spin the narrative by announcing new initiatives and partnerships, but nobody's buying it. They claimed the league is stronger than ever, and that diversity of talent would carry them forward. Yet when you look at the actual data, TV networks are already renegotiating contracts downward. ESPN quietly moved several primetime games to their streaming platform, essentially admitting they don't believe the product can compete for mainstream television slots anymore. The player reactions have been absolutely wild to witness. Some athletes who spent all of last season complaining about media coverage are now desperately trying to get any attention they can. Social media engagement has dropped by 80% for most players. The same athletes who said they didn't need one superstar to carry the league are now watching their follower counts hemorrhage daily. One prominent player, who shall remain nameless, posted 17 times in one day trying to generate buzz for an upcoming game. The desperation is palpable and honestly kind of sad to watch unfold. Here's where things get really interesting, though. The Indiana Fever situation has become the epicenter of this entire crisis. Their attendance numbers tell the whole story. When their biggest draw was healthy and playing, they were selling out 20,000-seat arenas. Now they're struggling to fill 8,000 seats even with heavily discounted tickets. Season ticket holders are demanding refunds at unprecedented rates. The team's social media accounts have lost over 300,000 followers in just the past month alone. That's not normal attrition, that's a mass exodus of fans who feel betrayed by how this season has unfolded. But the controversy runs even deeper than just numbers. Multiple sources within the organization have confirmed that there were warning signs about injury concerns that were deliberately hidden from the public. The medical staff allegedly knew weeks in advance that certain players wouldn't return this season, but kept stringing fans along with vague updates. Why would they do this? The answer is simple and cynical. They knew the moment they announced the truth, their revenue would crater. So they chose deception over transparency, and now they're paying the price in lost credibility. The ripple effects are hitting every corner of the league now. Television production crews are being cut because networks can't justify the expense for such low viewership. Commentary teams that were expanded last year are being reduced back to skeleton crews. The league's streaming service, which launched with such fanfare, is hemorrhaging subscribers at an alarming rate. They're offering desperate promotions like 90% off annual subscriptions just to keep people from canceling entirely. What's even more revealing is how other sports leagues are reacting to this collapse. The NBA, which owns 50% of the WNBA, is reportedly reconsidering their level of investment. Board members are questioning whether continuing to subsidize the league makes financial sense. Some franchises are already exploring options to fold or relocate to smaller, cheaper markets. The Sacramento Monarchs situation from years ago is being studied as a potential template for what might happen to multiple teams if things don't improve dramatically. The coaching carousel has become absolutely chaotic as well. 3 head coaches have already announced they won't return next season, citing personal reasons, but everyone knows the real story. They see the writing on the wall and don't want to be associated with a sinking ship. Assistant coaches are jumping to college programs at unprecedented rates. The brain drain is real and it's accelerating. Teams that thought they were building dynasties are now watching their entire infrastructures crumble. Here's something nobody's talking about but needs to be addressed. The international market that the WNBA was counting on for growth has completely evaporated. European leagues are now outbidding WNBA teams for top talent because they can offer more money and stability. Players who would have killed for a WNBA contract 5 years ago are now choosing to stay overseas. The league's global expansion plans have been quietly shelved indefinitely. That massive China deal they were negotiating? Dead in the water. The sponsorship situation is reaching crisis levels too. Major brands that signed multi-year deals are invoking force majeure clauses to get out of their contracts. The league's premier partnership with a major airline just got downgraded to a supporting sponsor role, which is corporate speak for "we're pulling most of our money out." Even social justice-focused companies that aligned with the WNBA's progressive messaging are quietly distancing themselves because activism without viewership doesn't sell products. But wait, it gets even more dramatic. Players are now openly feuding on social media about who's to blame for this disaster. Some are pointing fingers at the Players Association for not protecting their biggest star. Others are blaming the referees for allowing excessive physicality that led to injuries. The finger-pointing has gotten so toxic that team chemistry across the entire league is imploding. Locker rooms that were once united are now divided into factions. Practice sessions have reportedly turned into heated arguments about playing time and media attention. The playoff picture is looking absolutely dismal from a business perspective. Without the marquee matchups fans want to see, projections show playoff viewership could drop below 200,000 per game. That's below what some regular season college games pull. Networks are already preparing contingency plans to move playoff games to their least valuable time slots. The finals, which should be the crown jewel of the season, might end up being broadcast on secondary channels or streaming only. What really exposes the depth of this crisis is how quickly narratives have shifted. The same media outlets that were proclaiming a new era of women's basketball are now publishing articles about whether the league can survive in its current form. Sports talk shows that dedicated segments to WNBA coverage have gone back to ignoring it entirely. The cultural momentum that took years to build has evaporated in a matter of months. Comment below what you think the league should do to fix this mess, because honestly, the solutions aren't obvious. The veteran players who've been in the league for years are watching their final chances at relevance slip away. They spent their entire careers fighting for recognition and respect, only to see it all disappear when one rookie's presence proved more valuable than their combined decades of service. The bitterness is real, and it's ugly. Some are retiring earlier than planned because they can't stand being part of this collapse. Others are lashing out in interviews, making the situation even worse with their negativity. Financial analysts are now comparing this situation to other sports league collapses throughout history. The similarities to the original American Basketball Association's demise are eerily similar. A league that overextended itself based on projected growth that never materialized. The difference is the WNBA has the NBA as a safety net, but even that relationship is being tested. How long will NBA owners accept losing money on their WNBA franchises when the return on investment has completely vanished? The saddest part of all this is how preventable it was. The league had lightning in a bottle and somehow managed to fumble it completely. They had a generational talent that brought mainstream attention, and instead of protecting and promoting that asset, they allowed petty jealousies and poor management to destroy everything. The physical targeting that was allowed to happen, the lack of proper marketing support, the failure to capitalize on momentum, it's a masterclass in organizational incompetence. Looking ahead, the future appears incredibly bleak without major changes. The collective bargaining agreement negotiations are going to be brutal. Players want more money, but the revenue isn't there to support it. Owners want to cut costs, but that means losing even more talent to overseas leagues. It's a death spiral that nobody seems to know how to stop. The commissioner keeps talking about long-term growth and sustainability, but those are just empty words when you're hemorrhaging viewers and money daily. The truth nobody wants to admit is that the WNBA might need to completely restructure to survive. Fewer teams, shorter seasons, lower salaries, basically admitting that the grand experiment of competing with major sports leagues has failed. That's a bitter pill to swallow for everyone involved, but the alternative might be no league at all. The clock is ticking and decisions need to be made soon before it's too late to save anything. This entire situation serves as a cautionary tale about putting all your eggs in one basket. The league became so dependent on one player's star power that when that player couldn't play, everything collapsed. But it also reveals deeper issues about jealousy, mismanagement, and the inability to capitalize on opportunities when they present themselves. The WNBA had its moment, and they blew it spectacularly. If you made it this far, you're seeing what most media outlets won't tell you about this crisis. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we're going to keep bringing you the real story as this situation continues to unfold. The WNBA's future hangs in the balance, and the next few months will determine whether the league survives or becomes another footnote in sports history.